HTML reports are amazing because they let you embed interactive graphics, interactive maps, interactive tables into your analytics reports. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to deploy these HTML reports to the web to make them easily shareable. Let's get started. Before we dive in, I wanted to make one quick note, which is that this lesson assumes you're already familiar with Quarto. So if you don't know what that is, then please watch our video on Quarto and then come back to this. So I start by opening up my GitHub desktop, but you can use whatever Git interface you prefer. And I will create a new repository, and let's call it Pages Lesson for GitHub Pages Lesson. I'll leave the local path as is for now, and then I'll set the git ignore to Python. And let's create that repository, and I can directly publish this to GitHub. I want to make sure to uncheck this button so that this can be a public repository, because to host with GitHub Pages, you need your repository to be public. So if you want to share some sort of private internal report with sensitive data, then this is not the method for you. You could check out something like Netlify that lets you password protect your reports. But let's go ahead now and publish this public repository. So now we have our repo and it's on github.com. We want to put an HTML report into it. I'm going to open this up in VS Code. And there I'm going to create a Quarto file and put it in this repository. So I right click in my Explorer, click on New File, and I'm going to call this file index.qmd. Now make sure the index is all lowercase, all small letters, so no capital letters, index.qmd. Later we'll talk about why it needs to be all lowercase, so all small letters. And instead of typing up the whole report here, we're just going to copy and paste an existing report. So I want you to go to this URL here, and we will make sure that this is in the video description below the video, so you don't have to type it all out. And when you go to that in your web browser, you'll see the sample report we have compiled for you. So just copy that with Control-C or Command-C and paste that into your index. Now, in order to compile this report, we're going to need some libraries. So we need to install these. And the proper way to install these is to install them into a virtual environment. So let's quickly set that all up. I click on the top search bar and then show and run commands. And let's search for environment, Python create environment, create with venv, and I select my interpreter 3.12.0. And once that's done, I can make sure that the right interpreter is selected by again clicking on show and run commands, searching for interpreter, click on Python select interpreter, and make sure that the one with venv is selected by just clicking on it. Okay, so now we can install these two packages, iTables and Plotly. We can do that by clicking on the terminal menu option, which should be at the top left, and then new terminal. And now let's do pip install iTables and Plotly. Okay. And I just remember that to render a Quarto report, we also need Jupyter. So let's install that with pip install Jupyter. Okay. That's Jupyter. I know all these installations can be a bit of a pain, but don't worry, you don't have to do this every single time you want to publish a report. I just want to show you in this case how to start everything from scratch. Okay, so now everything should be installed. We can now go ahead and render this Quarto file by clicking on the preview button at the top right. And perfect, now we have this report, which is our index.html file. And as you can see, it has a table, it has a scatter plot, and it also has a map. Very nice. Now to get this on the web, what we need to do is go back to GitHub Desktop or to whatever interface you're using. Commit this change. For my commit message, I can say maybe rendered report. Click commit to main, push origin, and then now I'm going to right click on my repository and view it on GitHub. So here I am now on that repository with the index.html file, which is the rendered report. To deploy this as a web page, I'm going to click on settings at the top right. And on this side menu here, I'm going to look for pages. I click on that. Then I need to specify the branch I want to deploy from. In my case, I only have one branch. That's the main branch. And then I click to save. So now it says the GitHub Pages site is currently being built from the main branch. And if I want, I can track this by clicking on this Actions button, where I can see the workflow currently being run, pages build and deployment. If I click on this, I can see the individual steps of that. Usually after a few minutes, this should be ready and you can click on the link to view your page. Sometimes it does get stuck and you have to recommit and repush your files to trigger a new build. But most of the time it works out fine. So now I can click on this page and voila, my page is now on the internet. So this URL up here, HTTPS, and then it'll have your GitHub username and then the name of the repository Pages Lesson. Is something you can share with anyone, and it will take them to this your index.html page. So now let's see how to add another page to this. I'm going to go back to my VS Code and let's just make another page. And I'll call this page not named index. Not named index.qmd, but you can really call it whatever you want. The reason I'm giving it this funky name is I want to show you what happens when your file is not named index. And this will be a slight modification on the original index.qmd. So I'm going to copy everything from here and paste it into the not named index file. I'll give it another title, maybe another test report. And for this one, I will remove this panel tab set that you see on line 9 and also around line 46. This will just make the report a little bit different from the index. And let's render this one. Okay. And now I can see I have this not named index.html file also in the repository. So let's push this over to github.com. I'm going to come here to my GitHub desktop interface or whatever Git interface you're using. And let's commit this. For my commit message, I'll say added second report. I click commit to main and then push origin. And then let's go view this on GitHub. And now because I've already set up GitHub Pages, I don't really need to do anything. An automatic build will be triggered that is redeploying these two pages, index.html and not named index.html. And I can view the progress by clicking on the actions button here. And I see this one is still running, pages build and deployment 2. When this is done, it's still going to give me the same link to the index.html file because this is the default file for this particular repository. This is the default web page for this repository. The reason it's the default web page is that it's called index. And in web development, whatever is called index is going to be the default. So if into this URL space, I have pages lesson / index.html, you see it takes me back to this original report. But even if I delete that, it still takes me back to that index.html. So to get to that second report, I need to put the name of that report here, which I think was called not named index, not named index.html. And if I run this now, I am at that second report, another test report. And as you can see, this one is not wrapped in those tabs. So just to say that again, the structure of this URL here is going to be your GitHub username .github.io / the name of your repository / the name of your specific file path. But if your file path is called index.html, then you don't really need to supply it. You can just leave the repository name and by default, it will go to index.html. Okay, so that's the basics of how to get your HTML reports up to the web. Once it's up there, you can grab that URL, send it to anyone, publish it on LinkedIn. A very nice way to share your HTML analysis reports. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
For more resources, visit our website, where you can track your progress, access interactive quizzes and lesson notes, and connect with our teachers and other learners like you. And if you'd like a more guided experience, we also offer live online bootcamps with expert help. So join us at thegraphcourses.org to start your learning journey today.